There's a Chinese proverb that tells us a journey of 10,000 miles begins with the first step. Well, this book that I'm delighted to launch this afternoon in this splendid setting of St. Patrick's College Chapel tells us how a journey of 10,000 smiles began. It's uniquely told through the voices of those who are smiling today because of the work and mission of Patricia and her friends in Rebuild for Bosnia. Bosnia-Herzegovina, we know it well from the Euros in 2016, recalling the draw with Ireland in November 2015. We know it from the Eurovision Song Contest when they don't vote for us. And of course we know it from Medjugorje. Patricia went to that war-torn land and became a voice for the refugee victims of 1992-1995 conflict there. I know little of that conflict in that region from my own visit to the memorial room dedicated to the memory of the Dubrovnik defenders in the centre square at Dubrovnik. There you find a heartbreaking collection of portraits of young people who perished during the 1991-1995 battle around Dubrovnik. Conflicts, wars, violent unrests. We only hear what we're allowed or permitted to hear. There is censorship going on a massive scale across all our media platforms. At the present time, we're all experts on Kim Jong-un of North Korea. We know all about the racial tensions in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we hear infrequent reports of Boko Haram incursions into the northern region of Nigeria. There was a time we all remembered when mention that you came from Ireland when you were travelling abroad led to an immediate association with the armed conflict that raged in the northern part of our island for far too long. Thankfully, those days are past. But people abroad could make no distinction between Belfast and Bantry, between Derry and Drogheda. At the present time, there are 58 substantial world conflicts going on, wars being fought. Sky News, CNN, BBC World Service, RTE, at best allows an update on a handful of them. We know about Syria because of the refugees who came into our diocese, living sometimes in direct provision centres in the Our Proud Hotel at Newbridge or the Montague near Portlaoise, or in the Refugee Reception and Orientation Centre at the Hazel Hotel in Monasterevin. Afghanistan, Iraq, the Mexican drug war hasn't gone away. Other places worth mentioning: Somalia, the Kurdish-Turkish conflict, Darfur, Yemen, and the Central African Republic. Patricia tells me her story of a deep connection and immersion into the story of Bosnia-Herzegovina began in 1998. She was herself then in a difficult personal space. She lists that unhappiness very poignantly in the second chapter. A friend, Betty Fitzpatrick, asked her to go to Medjugorje, and she experienced there, as many do, the presence of Jesus through his mother in a very special way. A launch is not a time to review the book. That privilege is left to others at a later date, more equipped, more nuanced within the context of Bosnia-Herzegovina. Safe to say that this book is masterfully written. The early chapters follow the Pupik family and their horrendous story: love, separation, faith, incarceration, and freedom. But freedom for what? and too hot. That's where Patricia and her friends step in, building homes offering a future to over 3,000 displaced people. As I read the early chapters, I felt myself consumed by the strength of a character by the name of Vesna. I hope I pronounced her name right. Except she's not just a character in a well-written story. She's a real person. She's a real person who has lived through tremendous, horrendous suffering and still holds on to her faith. Continue to pray, Jesus, I trust in you. So often prayed, hope in God and hope in gospel, the Blessed Virgin Mary. In those pages you hear about Kay Barry, Father Aidan Carroll, Heather Parsons, David Parks, and others who have helped us to understand the story, the place, the devotion of Medjugorje and Bosnia-Herzegovina. I ask myself, is this spiritual reading? Might it be a book you take with you on a sun holiday? I think once you start the journey with this book, a journey that began in Suncroft and ends in Mostar and Medjugorje, you won't step off that journey of 10,000 smiles. I thank Patricia for sharing her faith story so generously with us. I thank her and her colleagues who know who they are for rolling up their sleeves and living their faith, summed up in another Chinese proverb, a disaster is only a crisis to be overcome. Pope Francis is currently in Colombia. It's his 20th visit abroad. Colombia, another area of conflict, a land troubled by the scars of violence and unrest. A country situated in the northwest of South America, with territories in Central America. It borders Panama, Venezuela, Brazil, Ecuador, Peru. Back in 2002, FARC guerrillas massacred 119 civilians in an indiscriminate attack, using an impoverished homemade mortar assembled with gas cylinder parts. Last Friday, Pope Francis prayed as he reflected on a wonderfully stark image of a black Christ with no limbs, representing those who died in that horrific guerrilla war. I conclude with the prayer he prayed last Friday. In praying this prayer, we remember all innocent victims of war, of conflicts, of unrest, wherever they are this Sunday afternoon. O Black Christ of Boye, who remind us of your passion and death, together with your arms and feet, they have torn away your children who sought refuge in you. O Black Christ of Boye, who look tenderly upon us, and in whose face is serenity, your heart beats, so that we may be received in your love. O Black Christ of Boye, grant us to commit ourselves to restoring your body. May we be your feet that go forth to encounter our brothers and sisters in need, your arms to embrace those who have lost their dignity, your hands to bless and console those who weep alone. Make us witnesses to your love and infinite mercy. Amen. Patricia, you've been a splendid witness to that love and mercy, and I'm honoured today to launch your evidence.